Evil 4, 5, and 6 will be coming to current generation platforms such as Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So the announcement didn't come all that shocking to me because I expected them to bring these to the forefront to the current platforms, and especially Resident Evil 4, because that's on every single system that's out there. I won't be surprised if they decide to go and announce demakes of it on past generation systems prior to the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox era, because I want to see a Virtual Boy one, because fuck kids and fuck their actual vision. We'll just go and blind them with this awful red and black monstrosity. We could have a Sega CD version, which is all FMV madness, and really piss poor live action acting a la Resident Evil 1, but that's something that I would get a lot of enjoyment out of. As a matter of fact, I kind of want that to happen. Can we make that happen? I would kickstart the living shit out of that, so if that's ever a thing, then please make that it would be fucking hilarious to me. Maybe we could have one on NES. I've seen what they did with certain other titles, such as Sweet Home, so maybe, possibly, could we do that? I mean, that would be fucking cool, I'm sorry. An 8-bit version of that, I'd be all for. We have Final Fantasy VII on NES, so why the fuck not? But Resident Evil 5 and 6. Now, this is a bit more interesting because it seemed that after Resident Evil 4, that's where the series just went off rails. And the story became a convoluted mess, and overall, it just seemed that they lost their way. That's where it was less about horror and more about action. They even came up front and said, yeah, we kind of want to get that Call of Duty audience, and we want to cater and pander to them, which made absolutely no sense because they're just going to be buying Call of Duty and playing that. People are playing Resident Evil, buying Resident Evil because that's what they wanted. So when you begin emulating something else and living in its shadow, and you lose sight of what made you special, you kind of just disintegrate every and any chance of making any audience happy. That's all there is to it. But I can admit one thing, Resident Evil 5, for all of its flaws, is actually not a bad co-op game. If you think about it, is it a good Resident Evil game? No, not really. But a good action game and a good co-op game? Most definitely. I enjoyed the shit out of it. Was Sheva really fucking annoying at times? She was. Was I upset that I couldn't just put a fucking bullet in her head and then go solo for the rest of the campaign? Yes, that was something that crossed my mind a number of different times, but we have the whole Lost in Nightmares thing with Chris and Jill. That I liked a lot. As a matter of fact, I kept thinking, while playing that portion of the game, why couldn't the whole game be this? That's all I wanted. Make Lost in Nightmares the entire fucking game. And I was just like, yeah! And it seemed that they learned their lesson from that because they released Resident Evil Revelations, which harkened back to the original concept of survival horror. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is fucking splendid. Look at the big horror fucking smile on my face while I'm just going and making mountains out of the bodies that I'm killing. Oh man, it's fucking great. Just buckets of gore everywhere. Blood aplenty. Oh, it's fucking wonderful. So Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, I love those a whole bunch, but then we come to 6. 6 is that game that it had no idea who it wanted to please and what the game wanted to be. It tried to be everything, and it was like the jack of all trades and the master of none. Master of unlocking? No, you were not. This game was trying to go and get the horror audience back. It was trying to go and get the action-oriented audience to invest in this and try to come away from the games that they're playing, you know, strip them of that and then bring them into this, and it didn't do any, and it didn't do any of it right, and on top of that, they had such a huge team. You had this gigantic-ass team, and like, I beat the game, and I still haven't even gone through Ada's quest. Keep in mind, I'm one of the biggest Resident Evil fans that I personally know. I love this series to death. I've played through and beat all of them. Except for Gaiden. I can't beat Gaiden. Gaiden is so fucking hard. It is. If you've played it, you understand that battle system is way too fucking difficult. But anyway. Oh, and Resident Evil 2 on the GameCom, but I don't count that. Because, what the fuck? That right there is... It should be used to torture all sorts of inmates and prisoners and shit, and just, that game is fucking brutal. Oh god. If you've ever thought that Resident Evil 5 or 6 were bad, no. Play Resident Evil 2 on the Gamecom, you will understand what true evil is about. Resident Evil. But we're getting all these games, and a lot of people will figure, I don't really fucking give a shit about this, because I'd rather play the Outbreak series. And I'll chime in and agree with that. If they took the Outbreak series and applied all the current generation technical leaps that we've made since the PlayStation 2 era and applied it to this, because online play is integral to many games that are out, and applied it to the Outbreak series and really just dazzled it up, dude, that'd be fucking awesome. Resident Evil 5 and 6, I know that there's a lot of people that didn't play them from last generation, and you figure it's important to take past generation games and keep bringing them to the front without having to just go and remake them from the ground up. And it wouldn't make sense remaking games from that generation because they're way too new. Personally, I'd be a little more stoked to hear that Resident Evil Code Veronica was getting ported, because I have a big soft spot in my heart for that game. I love that one a bunch. I always thought it was fantastic. It was one of the reasons that I wanted to get a Dreamcast so much. It blew my mind when I got Code Veronica X. I played the living shit out of that, knowing exactly what to do. Is it brutally difficult? The first half of it is. Is Wesker a bad motherfucker in it? Most definitely. Is Claire a fucking badass in it? Of course she is. You know, but it's a fun-ass game. Kind of wish this was going to be included with it. Now, they did say that, let's see, March is going to be one of the months, so just next month, just in a couple of days, we'll have this being released digitally. I don't know all the exact dates on them, but they did say that they'll be getting released physically. Now, what they didn't say was, will they all be collected together similar to Resident Evil Origins Collection, which I will tell everybody, buy that shit. Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 0 are fucking phenomenal titles. They are absolutely A+ work, in my opinion. I mean, hell, Resident Evil Remake, I think, is one of the best, arguably one of the best survival horror games ever, let alone one of the best Resident Evil titles. And then we got the Resident Evil 2 remake coming out. Resident Evil Revelations 2 is dirt cheap. That shit's like $20. I don't know what it is in every other part of the world, so you'll have to excuse me. But $20 for a bitchin' ass game, go and pick that shit up. Pick up Origins Collection, because that's only like $40. So you're getting 3 Resident Evil games that are top tier shit within the horror world, and that's only $60, which is the exact amount of a brand new game. That ain't all that fucking bad. But these, if they collect them together and they put it at a discount price, I think they'll work a lot better, because you can already get them for cheap on PC, through Steam. You can get them, you know, digitally on tons of other different platforms like PSN, on Xbox. You can get them physically for cheap. So would it make sense for them to charge a whole lot for them? If they do, well, they're just going to have to discount them over time, because a lot of people aren't going to be jumping on that shit immediately. So who the fuck knows? But the real question is, does anybody want to play through Resident Evil 6 again? I know it sounds like I'm just being mean to the game, but it wasn't all that satisfying. I enjoyed Leon's campaign, and I enjoyed most of Chris's. Most. Because there was some really shitty parts in it, but it just didn't feel like what it should have been. And I truly can see that Capcom has understood, wow, this shit isn't working, this direction that we were going. We need to go back to the drawing board, understand what made Resident Evil what it was, and just run with that. And if the Resident Evil 2 remake is any indication of the direction that they want to take the series, let alone Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, which need to be bundled together for current gen platforms. That's all I'm going to fucking say. But this is something that I think is going to be an important factor in terms of like what the direction for something like Resident Evil 7 will be, for example. So hopefully we just get straight up survival horror games akin to the Resident Evil remake, because that shit just works for me. A lot of people will say, well, I hope that controls like Resident Evil 4. I personally don't mind the control scheme in the Resident Evil remake or Resident Evil 4. I can work with both. I just want the games to be fucking scary again. And also, quit having the goofy fucking storylines. The storylines in Resident Evil 5 and 6 are a goddamn mess. Not to say that they are the best pieces of literature and like the script writing is so fucking amazing and all this other shit, you know, that was bestowed upon the gaming world or anything, but it was basic and it worked, and then they just tried to get all crazy and fancy, and it turned into a fucking mess, like a mess that you face-palmed at. I'd rather have this shitty voice acting and the basic ass storyline from the first Resident Evil than that shit. That's all I'm saying. So Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. It's coming out for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The question is, will you be interested in playing any of them? Are you going to get it digitally, or are you going to get it physically? Thoughts on Resident Evil 5? Thoughts on Resident Evil 6? Most people say that they like Resident Evil 4 for the most part. There are going to be a lot of people out there who say, that was the beginning of the end, because that's where everything began going to shit. It's all that game's fault. I'm still waiting for them to bring out Resident Evil 4.5, because that, oh my fucking god, dude. That shit looked cool as hell. just type it in onto YouTube after you're done watching this, or just right now and click away from my video and just be like, bye Alpha, I want to go see this. Because that footage, it was all paranormal and fucked up and scary and spooky. I was like, dude, this is fucking badass. Completely different direction, completely different style of game compared to what we got as the final product. So 4.5 and 1.5, I want those so damn bad. I'm going to be beating that dead horse to fucking oblivion with a baseball bat until this happens at some point. Because at least they're listening. You know, at least they're listening. That's how we got the remake. So fingers crossed that shit's going to be good. But 4, 5, and 6, interested? Yay? Nay? Who the fuck knows? Anyway, this is AlphaOmegaSin. As always, nerds, nerdettes, and gamers game the fuck off.